Today, I decided to do another video. The cats are also in the room, so if they get distracting, I'm gonna have to step out to kick them out. But they seem like they're gonna nap today, so fingers crossed. I want to talk about dating. And the reason I want to talk about this is I feel like there's a lot of things that we don't talk about when it comes to this. We talk about how uncomfortable it can be, how hard it is to meet genuine people, how difficult it can be to get into an actual serious relationship with somebody. But what we don't always talk about is what it's like to be dating as a woman. Yes, there's a lot of little things that, we can talk about. We can talk about finding somebody, the unfair stereotypes that, women have to be gorgeous, but a guy can be a slouch, and all sorts of things like that. But what I really want to talk about is safety. And the reason is, I don't know if people really think about it very often in this way. So you want to talk about dating, it's, who is he, and what is he like, and send me pictures, see if he's cute, and all of that stuff. But there's also the other side of it when it comes to online dating. So if you're going to go on a date, and you know him, you go to school with him, or he's one of your old friends, and you guys just got feelings, and it's a lot of times more comfortable to do it that way. But just the way that things are moving, even the way that I met my husband, online dating is become a thing. There's all of these dating apps. There's even Facebook has a dating option now that you can go on a date with somebody that you've never met. And yes, there's all of that catfishing stuff that's out there, but I want to talk about people that aren't necessarily catfishing. So you meet this guy, you're talking to him, and you finally decide you're going to go out on your first date with him. And you get there and it is him, but there's all of this stress that comes with it if, you are a woman. I know that a lot of the times that I've gone on those dates, I will text at least one, usually more than one friend, and say, hey, I'm going out on a date with this guy, this is who he is, this is his profile, this is where we're going, I will call you later. Or when I was living at my parents' house, I'd say, hey, I'm going on a date with this guy, I will be back about this time. And if something changed, like we decided to stay there longer, we just can't stop talking or whatever, I will send a message to my parents to let them know, hey, I'm going to be home a little late. And this is all part of this reassurance that we're gonna be okay. Because let's face it, if I had to go up in a fight against some guy, I will probably not win. I'd like to think that I will, because I'm stubborn and I think I'm tough. But the reality is, I'm not going to be able to physically fight off somebody. I might get lucky, there might be other people there that can catch it, I might be able to scream loud enough, but let's say we decide to go back to his place, because that's the thing that happens a lot. What if he decides he's got bad intentions? That's not an easy situation to get out of if something bad happens, because now you're at somebody else's house. They've got the unfair advantage of knowing where everything is. If you start screaming, a lot of times people won't come knock on the door anymore. I could probably be screaming bloody murder, and I have on multiple occasions screamed at my cats, what the heck are you doing, and what do you think, and I can't believe you're doing this, and nobody's ever come to knock on my door. And we live in a duplex, so there's people that are right on the other side of this wall who would hear us. And I'm kind of grateful, because it would be really embarrassing to have to explain that I'm yelling at my cats and not my husband or some intruder or anything. But there's still that fact that if it had been that way, nobody was going to come check on me. And I'm usually really careful. We'll try to do 100 different things to make sure that I'm safe whenever I'm going on a first date. Like when I met my husband, we met at a Starbucks. It was a really busy Starbucks. There was a lot of other people there. I even had my backup escape plan, which we joke about now because it's really funny that I had my escape plan on our first date and I ended up marrying him. But I did. When I went into that Starbucks, I didn't use my first name. I used my middle name for the order. So if for whatever reason he wasn't who he said he was, I was not feeling comfortable in there, I could always no, actually, I'm this person. They'd call my name, I'd go up and I'd get my order and I'd leave, and it would be okay. Granted, it didn't have to go that way, but that was my escape plan. My mom knew where I was. She was following my location. It's even really funny that we talked about it later, that my mom was like, I need to see a picture of him. I need to know if you go missing who I'm looking for. And I laughed about it, and I still laugh about it now. But the reality is, nobody really could have known what he looked like because I was living in San Antonio at the time. I didn't have too much family around. Nobody else had really met him. And I've even joked about it with him because I read a story, like a couple months after that, when we were already in a good place, we were dating, we were talking about, what our future held together and so on. But I read the story of this girl who went on a date, a lot like we did, went to meet this guy, and then started not feeling well. And so she started, I really don't feel good. I'm just going to call a cab and go home. So she did. As they're waiting for this cab, she starts to feel a little bit better. And he volunteers, hey, can I make sure you get home okay? Now that sounds like a really nice gentleman thing to do. And so she's feeling it. So she said, okay. They went to her place and she, again, started feeling better. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to invite him up. And she does. They go up to her place. They start talking. She starts not feeling well again. So she says, you know what? That's it. I'm just going to go to bed. So she tells him it's time to go. He, without a fuss, is like, okay, no problem. Leaves. She locks the door. She goes to her room, closes the door, and goes to sleep. Well, she woke up really groggy a while later and heard rustling in her living room area. So she locked the door to her bedroom and called emergency services, and they showed up. It turned out that he had taken a key on his way out, got back in after she'd fallen asleep, and was setting up plastic sheeting. And he admitted that and when they did testing later, they found out that he'd been drugging her, and that's why she wasn't feeling well. And everybody was surprised that she was able to wake up to the noise because of how much was in her system. I really wish I could say I made all of this up. But it was a big story that had happened around that time, and it was terrifying. Especially considering it could have easily been me, because I, went out with this guy that I'd never met before. We went to coffee and then we went to dinner, and it got really late, and it could have easily have gone that way. Fortunately, it didn't. It was my husband that I was meeting at the time, and obviously things are going really well, and he's a really great person. But I've gone on other dates through apps. Other women have too, and these are the kinds of stories that ring and echo in the back of our minds when we're going on these. Because, yes, you can make the argument that, men could have easily been victims too, but it's just not likely. That's not what usually happens. What usually happens is a woman gets taken advantage of. There's all of these marches where women are holding up posters with signs that say, this is what I was wearing when I got raped. And they're wearing t-shirts and jeans. They're just dressing casually. They weren't asking for it, whatever that means. And it happened to them. And these are the things that echo in the back of our brains. And it's why we are probably seeming rude by texting in the middle of our conversation. It's why we feel the need to send your picture to our friends and share our location with our friends so let everybody else knows what's going on. It's why we go to the bathroom in groups. All of these things that we've had to start doing to protect ourselves, because we don't know which one of you are the good guys and which one of you are the bad guys. Which one of you just want to get to know us and genuinely want a relationship and will eventually marry. And which one of you is drugging us to take advantage or to hurt us later. And it's not always worth the risk. Some people don't go on dates with people that they don't know. They only go on dates with people that they've met in safe places, or they go to very public events and they will never go to private dinners until they're comfortable with you. And I feel like we're not talking about this enough. I feel like there's more that we could be doing to keep us safe. And I'm not talking about building new apps, because there are some that exist. I know iPhones have this really cool feature that if you click the lock button about 5 times, it opens up an emergency feature that you can swipe SOS, you can swipe an emergency, you can say that something's wrong, and you don't even have to swipe it. If you leave it running for a few seconds, it will automatically start dialing for you. So if you're terrified and you're by yourself and something's happening, you just have to reach in your pocket and click it. And it works. And it's awesome. Granted, if you want to test it out, there is a feature that you can just hit cancel just to see if your phone has it. But all of these things are being built and designed to help us should it happen. But I feel like there's not enough being done to help prevent it. And how do you prevent these things? Part of it is, if you're a parent of a child, teach them the things they need to know to be responsible adults. Stop using things like boys will be boys. No, boys will be respectful and responsible for their actions. I was held responsible for my actions and told to be respectful of people. Is it so much to ask that they are too? Stop with all of this. We can't sentence him to longer in prison because, even though he raped her, because it's going to ruin his life. Like it already hasn't ruined hers. We need to stop making excuses for them. And I'm not talking about all of them, obviously. I'm talking about the ones who are guilty. Because if you start setting this standard that when you get caught, you are going to be held accountable. Because let's face it, that Brock Turner case, which was one of the really big things, almost everybody knows about it, he got a couple months. And he got off for good behavior. Even though there were eyewitnesses, people who were so disturbed that they felt sick watching what had happened, who rescued her, and now she's got to live with what's happened. He only got a couple of months because he's got such a promising career ahead of him. So much so that they were trying to make us forget that this had ever happened, so that he could get away with it because his life mattered more than hers. We have to stop that narrative, because if not, what's his incentive not to do it again? What's all of these other guys' incentive not to do it at all? When we're reckless drivers, we can lose our license. We have to pay very expensive fines, and we might not even be able to drive anymore. If you are an alcoholic, you try not to drink anymore. There's all of these things that have consequences that prevent us from doing it. I don't want to go breaking into somebody's house because I could go to jail. I don't want to kill somebody because I could spend a lifetime in prison and even get the death sentence in Texas. There are consequences to these actions. So the people who might think about it have to weigh the decision, and it deters a lot of people. But for these kinds of things, for rape, for abuse, there's not a lot that goes into it. Sure, there's some, but it's just not substantial enough sometimes. And even the news headlines that were covering that case were still like, oh, we're ruining his life, he was such, and they pulled up all of these things about how great of a guy he was, all the while ignoring the fact that she was probably just as great. She was doing the same thing he was doing there. She was enjoying herself at the party. The thing is, she has to live with what he did, what he decided, and he gets to get off in 2 months for good behavior, and everybody's going to try to forget about it so that he can go on with his life. Like, she's not struggling to get on with hers. We need to start this conversation, and for those of us that are having it, need to have this conversation louder, because if we're not working to actively fix it, it's gonna either get progressively worse or it's not gonna change. And we're still going to be afraid. We're still going to be texting our friends like, if they suddenly stop hearing from us, there's a lot that they can do other than call the cops and be like, hey, my friend was out on a date and I haven't heard from her. Is she okay? What if their phone died and they can't What if something bad happened to them? I know when I have to walk in a dark parking lot by myself, I used to call my parents and say, hey, I'm leaving rehearsal and I have to walk to my car and it's dark outside. So I just wanted to have somebody on the phone that if I started screaming or somebody tried to grab me, they would at least know that something happened. Would anybody able to get to me? Would it change much? If anything, somebody knew that I was not okay. We're doing everything we can to try to protect ourselves, to try to seem like we're harder to get to. We're trying to learn to fight back. We're trying to learn to travel in groups. But are we doing enough to prevent it from happening at all? No, I'm not saying that we need to blame and pin every single person. No, my husband's a great person and he would never do that. He'd probably be the guy that tries to help protect us all. But there is enough that we need to start treating it like as big of a problem as it is. Because we say, yes, oh, well, if rape is going up, maybe we should start wearing things that are less attractive so that we're not attracting the wrong kind of attention. No, then we should do something to the people who are getting caught so that they don't do it again and it deters others from doing it. We should be taking better care to better light the streets, to do things like, and on campuses they have these blue lights that you can press in case of emergencies. Have them in more places. Take more calls seriously. Yes, there's always going to be the people who are making reports or saying that something happened to them when it didn't. But if it starts saving and preventing horrible things from happening to women who are just trying to live their lives, I see it as a plus. We need to treat it as big of a problem as it is. We need to try our best to make sure that it stops happening. And that when it does happen, we take it seriously. We don't just, oh, well, we don't want to do too much because it might ruin his life. It's already ruining our lives. The idea that all of these things are possible and capable of happening to us ruins our lives because we're afraid to go out. We're afraid to wear things that could be considered promiscuous. We're afraid to go walk to our cars at night without having somebody on the phone to save us in case something happens, or to have keys in our hands as if it's going to do anything. I want to remember what it was like when I was little to be able to walk from my parents' house to my grandmother's house and not worry. Part of that for me was because I was still walking among family and I knew I was safe because everybody there would be willing to help me. And we're starting to get there because now all of these women and all of these good men are out there who are trying, when they see us in situations. There's so many memes and posts about people saying, yeah, I saw this guy walk up to this girl and she looked really uncomfortable, so I walked up to her to see, acted like she was a good friend of mine, to see if she was okay. And if she is okay, they let her go about. If she's not okay, they try to make sure that she's going to be. Instead of just letting things happen, we're trying to be more proactive about preventing it. And that's a great step in the right direction. But we need to be doing more. Because while it's slowly starting to prevent some, it's not preventing all. And the ones that are getting caught aren't really being deterred if we're trying to defend them in the media, if we're trying to defend them in court instead of the person that they're attacking. I could go on and on about this, and I know I've talked about it before, especially in the I don't care what you think of me, and I leave me alone, please and thank you, and all of those things that I've talked about, because this is a really big issue. Because as my friends are having kids, I really don't like when people say, oh, you're having a daughter? Well, good luck. I hope you teach them martial arts so they can defend themselves. I hope you teach them to say no. As if just knowing the word no wasn't enough. I love that my friend taught her daughter no means no, and the strength and courage to say it. but I wish she didn't have to. I love that all of these women are learning all of these martial arts and becoming really powerful, amazing women, but I wish they didn't feel they had to because their safety was at risk. Hopefully this got some of you thinking, and maybe it makes a difference. But the next time you are out and you see somebody uncomfortable, or you see a woman at night walking alone, turn on some lights for her. If she's waiting at a bus stop by herself, maybe ask her if you can sit with her just to make sure that she's okay. Because it might feel like a small little thing that you can do, but you might have just made sure that nothing bad happened to her today. And that's enough. Thanks for watching.